Kyle is a father now.
I am a father. Yes.
And it is the first FBE baby.
His very first picture that he ever took was put on FBE's Instagram. With one picture has more likes than I've ever gotten in my entire 32 years of life. I don't want to start him watching kids shows. I want to start him watching like Pulp Fiction and just see what happens. Like, will he end up being like really cool and smart and like edgy? Like, who knows?
Hey guys, welcome to episode 22 of the FBE Podcast. Joining you this week, myself, John, a familiar voice or face if you've seen enough of these things. We also have Benny. Say hello.
Hey everybody, Macarena.
Oh,
I forgot again last week.
Oh my God, it hurts me so bad.
I didn't say it last week, so top of the show.
You're like, hey, you know how to start this thing with good rhythm? Let's just derail it off the beginning and just make it a terrible experience for everybody.
People love the Macarena.
Maybe our two guests don't even know what the hell you're talking about.
Kyle laughs, so he knows.
I mean, I was a bar mitzvah DJ, so Macarena is second nature to me.
The voice you just heard, for those listening to the audio version, Kyle, one of our APs on the FBE channel, and our other guest that you may have heard a giggle from there a second ago. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey guys, I'm Katie.
She's another AP, one of our wonderfully talented APs on the React channel. So
can you guess the theme here?
It's the producer show. So a lot of you guys have asked a lot of questions over the previous weeks using the hashtag FBE Podcast, some of them directly related to these two. So we're going to get into as many of your questions as possible. That's what this show is all about. It's talking to you guys, hanging out with the 5%, which is our affectionate name for the very small percentage of you. You guys aren't used to this. You guys are used to much bigger numbers and the stuff that you work on. This is a very humble show here. It's not for everybody. We're okay with that.
I will say that once again, I saw several comments last podcast insulting the view count. And that's why we acknowledge the fact we know leaving the comment doesn't do anything. We know that's the point.
Yes, this is a total like nerd out production behind the scenes podcast, and not everybody is interested in the DVD extras. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Some people just want the show, and that's totally fine. But this is for the DVD extras crowd, and we're super pumped and thankful that you guys are here with us because the fans have so many questions to get to.
Very exciting.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, and me.
Do we want to go quick through the company news, or did you have a little bit of?
We'll go company news and then we'll go there. Yeah.
Okay. You're getting behind the scenes on the behind the scenes here, where Benny and I are arguing over the rundown of which questions we're asking first.
I don't think you say arguing. We're just having a pleasant conversation.
I just have a question about the podcast. This is completely unedited, right? So this is all just this is all going on.
Unless you start dropping F-bombs. If you start dropping F-bombs or making fun of Sean, who's the engagement team editor, who works on the podcast, that probably gets cut.
So there will be white flashes. There could be white flashes.
It depends how many F-bombs you drop, or if you just start getting really like aggressively mean.
Or if like a light falls.
Okay, but generally this is just going going through.
Yes, this is all making it right now.
Okay, I will stop talking then. I will stop talking about this.
The longer you go, it's just going to keep going, Kyle.
Okay, keep onward.
Okay, first update. We have a little company news segment, which we're going to go over some of the biggest news from the week from our channels and company. Then a bunch of questions for you guys, and a few questions that we got for the company overall, which Benny will answer towards the end, as well as some of the interesting conversations we've seen on our content that's released recently. So that's kind of the shape of what this podcast is right now. So off the top, we've been talking about the live event for a couple weeks now.
Yeah.
The ticket sales, which were free, but we still call them ticket sales. It was incredible. I think we opened them up on like a Wednesday, like in front of a challenge chalice, and then within 2 days, like they had all sold out, and that's like so awesome and empowering and like humbling.
Well, that's the moment of too. Even though like we have the large audience and we assumed people would care, it's still pretty awesome that like that quickly it's like, oh no, we're people even more wanted to come than we had room for.
Especially because it's only in LA, and we know how much that sucks for so many people. But just that the fact that they were able to sign up and like raise their hand is like really awesome for us, because that means that maybe we can start thinking about this stuff in a bigger way in the future.
Right. So if anyone's listening and not knowing, there's going to be an FBE meetup for the first time that's happening when this comes out in a week. I think a week later, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Where we'll be
November 17th.
Yeah. So we will be hanging out. The staff. I hope both of you are going to be able to come.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Nice. So it'll be staff, reactors, hang out. Some people are going to be able to audition and take pictures with groups of reactors
There's
and
free
staff.
food. That's the only
And
reason
free
I'm
food.
showing
The
up.
only reason
is there's
John's
free
coming,
food.
apparently. Okay, fine.
You can't go wrong with free
But
food.
we've talked about this before. Of like, this is a bit of not a test, because it's more of like, how does this go? Because we want to be engaging in real life more with the fans. So this is like the first event of its kind to then learn from it, see what people liked, what people didn't like, what else they want, and find out more from mostly you guys, the 5%, of like what types of things would you want in an event like this to make it more worth your while.
And for the vast majority of people listening or watching that are not going to this thing, make sure you're subscribed to FBE too, because we're going to be filming as much of it as possible, and you can still give us that feedback based on what you see from the videos that we put out there towards the end of November. So we're desperately interested in your feedback. If you want to find out or be the first to find out more information on stuff like this, just join the wait list. Head over to the ticket link, which we'll put in the description, and sign up anyway, and that'll add your email so that we know who to reach out to when we have more stuff like this.
Just the beginning. We're trying to figure out more fan engagement stuff. So if you have an idea, leave a comment. What else should we do that you want access to?
Benny, you want to take the next one?
Yeah, so coming pretty soon, within a month or so, FBE's first feature is going to be coming out called F the Prom.
Woo.
So we're excited about that. So Rafi and I wrote it, and I directed it a little over a year ago now. But super fun. It stars Danielle Campbell, who you might remember from CW's The Originals. She was also, ironically, in a Disney movie called Prom when she was younger, and now she's in F the Prom. I think that's great.
Not a
Full
sequel.
circle.
Not a sequel.
Good stuff. She was also in
not a sequel.
was it a Disney Channel original movie, Starstruck? Are people familiar?
Oh, I am familiar with
Okay,
Starstruck.
so that was her in Starstruck.
Awesome.
I remember when we cast her, and I went to go watch Starstruck just to be like, I know her as an adult. Let me watch her in this movie and be like, she's better in F the Prom. But also Madeline Petch, who's Cheryl Blossom on Riverdale, and Joel Courtney, who was on The Messengers, and also when he was much younger was the star of the film Super 8, if you're familiar with that as well. And some familiar faces. Got Tom and Eric and Ethan James and Jeannie in some small and fun roles. So some of the reactors. Diamond White, who you might know from Sing It or The X Factor. And also some old school people for the old school listeners of the podcast. Ian Ziering, who you might know from Sharknado now, but I know him from Beverly Hills 90210, as well as Sherry O'Terry from Saturday Night Live, and Richard Karn, who was in Home Improvement. So lots of fun people.
Wow, that's a great cast.
Yeah, good stuff. Look at the plug right there.
I'm most excited about Diamond White. I mean, I'm a huge X Factor fan, so that's very cool. I didn't know she was in it.
She was in The Office today.
She was?
Yeah, I hosted an episode with her.
Why did nobody tell me this?
So
If you were following her on Instagram, I think she did a live story.
Did she?
She was here.
Wow, that's cool. I mean, RIP X Factor, but great show.
So we've been filming things all this week for some promotional special episodes that we're going to be doing around the Prom's release, obviously putting out the trailer, etc. There'll be more information about where you'll be able to get it. It is going to be a digital release, but it's coming soon, and I'm sure we're going to be talking about it probably on every podcast all the way until it's out.
Was Diamond in a My Music Presents episode?
No, so we first worked with Diamond White for the charity live stream of My Music. So she was one of the live performers when we had the transmedia in the
which is still online.
Yes,
You can find
it's
that.
actually a good show. Which is crazy. It was really crazy.
If he was
to
a
put
big
together.
Diamond White fan, he would have known that better.
Yeah. Let me clarify. I love Diamond White, but I mean, I'm a huge X Factor fan, but I definitely was a fan of Diamond White on the show, but I'm a broader X Factor.
Okay, fine. Good clarification. But yeah, she was 14 then, and that was where in the My Music sitcom scripted, filmed months before, we said we're gonna go live in 2 days, and then we had to actually go live because that was how My Music worked, and put on a whole thing and raised almost $15,000 I think for charity, which was very cool. But a bunch of awesome music performances with all the actors in character, and you were like technical directing, and we were all wearing a lot of hats that night. But it worked, I guess. But that's coming soon, and also. Always exciting. We did the Elders React to Marshmallow episode, and then Marshmallow tweeted it out.
Oh, so cool.
Very cool.
The better thing was the comment that he left on the video. Did you see that
No,
one?
I didn't.
He left a comment. It's the top comment on Elders React to Marshmallow where he says, finally I can cross this off my bucket list.
Wow.
And then the most humbling thing to me was a fan had replied to Marshmallow being like, you made it, man. Like, you made it to Elders React
Wow.
was the fan comment. And I was just like, what? Like, this
It is a crazy thing because I don't think, I mean, we all know that there's a lot of reach, but I don't think we all fully view it that way. But a lot of the fans do. Because I saw even for the Camila Cabello episode, a bunch of people tweeting her and saying, like, you made it. I'm like, they've already made it. They've really
made it.
But it's obviously very humbling to hear those things, and that, maybe we'll get Marshmallow into the studio. That would be fun.
Well, I was first, I don't even know if I necessarily knew even alone before the What's Inside collab he did with the What's Inside YouTube channel, where they met him and like sliced up his helmet or something like on the channel. I was like, who's this like a guy, like this is such a crazy interesting collab between an EDM artist and like a YouTube channel or something. So who knows? That'd be amazing. I'm a huge fan now. But yeah. Okay, question. We've got Kyle and Katie here. Do you want to take?
Yeah, we're gonna go.
this?
So we always go first with, we have things from the fans, but I bring up my own things.
This is where Benny
I don't know about this.
hijacks the narrative here and starts asking questions.
So first we'll start with something from Kyle. So Kyle has the distinction of Kyle is a father now.
I am a father. Yes.
And it is the first FBE baby.
Yes, I'm very proud. His very first picture that he ever took was put on FBE's Instagram, and he, with one picture, has more likes than I've ever gotten in my entire 32 years of life.
And let me keep you think that we do have, there are people who work here that already had children, but this is the first staff member to have a baby while working here. So
there was a
an
betting
exciting
pool,
moment.
I think. Was there not?
There
Or
was.
it informal?
People were betting on when he was going to be born.
Yeah.
And he was 3 days late, so I believe, I don't remember who won.
I don't remember.
I was not here for the winners, so I'm not 100% sure. But I think they all got gift cards. I didn't get a gift card. So.
You're just pointing out that you're for having the baby, you got no gift card. So that's a thing that hasn't happened yet. We keep talking about having him come on to something.
I've been pushing for it. My wife is a little bit against him being seen by millions of people at this point.
Okay, I mean, I can't fault it, but at the same time, he's not going to remember, and I like the idea.
Nothing about him remembering.
What a terrible reason.
I don't know. I just think there's something funny about anything, to showing up at the edit and one of the producer goodbyes.
Well, this
even,
is your
or-
chance. Can you talk to my wife and tell her that I want him to be on Staff Reacts with me?
Well, look, the staff react thing is larger than what I was wanting. What I've been wanting forever is just having him with you when you're doing a goodbye for an episode.
I think it's go big or go home.
Well, I'm fine with either, and I think it would be great, and I think that the community would be very excited about that, and be like, oh, who's the baby? It's like, oh, it's her baby. But if we're talking about on Staff React, I don't know what people think about you on that show, Kyle.
That's the other reason, because my wife has seen some of the comments of people saying that they want me dead. So I don't know if she wants my son associated with me on that show.
If you haven't seen Kyle and Staff React, you're very, very, very competitive.
Yeah.
We did one together early on, and you were just like, oh, I'm ready to destroy you. Like, you're just like ready to go.
I don't know what it is. I'm not a competitive person in life, but when it comes to silly games, nobody will play Monopoly with me. Like, nobody will play any game with me, just because, I don't know, my brain kind of gets in this weird thing whenever I'm competing in a game that I'm not even really myself.
Fair enough. I mean, if you watch my episode of Tabletop, the show that Will Wheaton does on Geek and Sundry, I was on there with Rafi once, and I'm not competitive, but I love like messing with people's heads playing games.
I played Risk with Benny once, and the amount of psychological warfare that goes on in a game of Risk with Benny, in terms of the levels of like alliances he's trying to create and the constant.
But I don't really care if I win. I just like that part of it. And somewhere in the middle of that episode of Tabletop, Felicia Day, who I've known forever, like we are friends, she said like, "I never trusted you again," or something like that. In the middle of the episode, she's like, "I'm not even listening to you anymore." I'm like, we're just playing a game. I did win, but anyway.
At the end of the day, all that matters is if you won.
But I don't really care. Anyway, also going to bring up your hat. If you're watching the podcast, Kyle's wearing a Dodger hat. But here's the irony of this. Katie,
you're
I would
blow
say,
me up like this.
Listen, I'm going to put you on blast.
Okay.
Katie, I would say, and I guess maybe it's only because I know this about you, Katie, but I feel like you are like probably the biggest Dodger fan at the company.
Actually, yeah, I'll take that title. I think I am
you're
the
like a
biggest Dodger
legitimate
fan here.
big Dodger fan and go to games all the time and all of these things. And we were all talking constantly during the World Series. And then I found out over time that Kyle just likes the hat.
Yeah, no. I also found that out because I asked him. I was like, yes, we're going to the World Series. And Kyle was like, eh.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, this isn't even an official hat. I got this from a scalper outside of Dodger Stadium. This is a $5 hat, but it fits me so well. So
You wear it all the time.
I know. It's the best $5 I've ever spent.
Anyway, whatever.
Go blue.
And Katie, and I'm going to get into something more like work related in a second. But
keep talking and keep answering because we're not going to cut here. What's happening for the people listening to the audio is I'm going to slowly move my way over across the set to fix Katie's microphone.
Oh, my bad. I keep bumping it.
No. Keep asking your question.
Okay. If 5% doesn't know, for years now, and we always try to hope to be able to do it every year, we shut the company down and we all go to Disneyland. And that's where I spent more, like the first time I spent real time with you was 2 years ago at the Disneyland trip where you had just started working here and I barely had known you. I'm like, okay, good. Katie's in my group. We can like hang out more. But I made you take this picture.
Yes.
That I now always make you take whenever we were at Disneyland. So what is this picture that I make you take?
It is a picture of me with the, like, what do you call them? Penny rifles?
Yeah.
At the fake, like, shooting range.
Yes, in Frontierland.
Yes.
Yes. So there was a scavenger hunt the first, like, 2 years ago that was, like, I think it was, like, get a picture with a React channel producer holding the gun or with a hat. No, it was with a weird hat. Wasn't it?
Well, no, I think it was holding a gun.
Oh, either way. So I did that, and I thought it was just the best picture ever. So when we went back again, it was like the first thing that I had our group do was take the same
Before
picture.
a ride, I think we did that.
It was like, oh, no, we have to go and take this picture of Katie.
Worth it.
So it's always worth it. So also want to talk more on the work side of things. So Katie, we should actually talk about this quickly. Katie, start, and then to Kyle, can you list for the fans what shows you work on?
So I work on the React channel. So I do, but I mostly do They Know It, Lyric Breakdown, People versus Food. And well, now I'm starting to do more staff reacts and laugh challenges and stuff. Mm-hmm.
And I work for the FBE channel, so I do all of the like original React series. You know, YouTubers react, kids react, teens react, adults react, college kids react. I'll just react.
Correct.
React.
So with that, Lyric Breakdown has kind of firmly become kind of your show these days.
Yeah.
And if people aren't aware, Lyric Breakdown was a show that actually we had canceled at one point because it was just not performing well enough over the periods of time. And Katie kind of brought it back to life, very specifically, kind of redeveloped it into something that has now completely been working. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how you redeveloped it and even like why it's like the elements of like what has made you realize what is working and even giving them a tease of some episodes coming soon.
Well, I thought of it because I am obsessed with Lady Gaga, actually.
That was on my list to talk about next, but anyway.
Yeah. And she was scheduled to do the Super Bowl, but there was like not a song of hers that was charting high enough. And I just thought, well, what if we could just do like her career, because she has so many hits and so much like deeper lyrics than you would think. And we put together the Lady Gaga episode, and now we try to choose artists that have something coming up or like albums dropping, and instead of just picking one song, I think it's fun to see how they've grown through their career.
Yeah, and also we added all these elements that you added to it too, of like actually having them hear it afterwards, which was a thing that we got a lot in the comments about.
Yeah, a ton of comments asking for that, which is like a great idea.
Yeah, and it's also like trying to pick like, it really comes from a lot of you guys of what we were seeing that you really want and trying to hit. Well, this is what our fans are most passionate about. Let's cover those artists. So spoil a little bit. What's some upcoming episodes?
We actually got flooded with J. Cole comments. So that is who is coming up next. I think we're filming that like tomorrow and Wednesday.
Yeah, J. Cole's always in the comments.
Yeah. So
crazy.
We're doing it.
Nice. And I want you both to answer, but Kyle, I'm curious in terms of the interviewing of talent. And we've talked about this a lot with the reactors on the podcast about how they talk about that room. And some of it originates with talking about what it was like with me and Rafi, but we then talk about, there's like the sacredness of the room that you guys have successfully done because they all talk about it the same way. So can you talk about from even like that journey of like starting to like where you are now and how you view the room?
First of all, I like how it's called the room, and it's not called the studio really. It's
especially
just like
with the disaster artist coming out. Like,
it is referred to as the room.
It is the room. Like nobody says like it's the studio. It's the room. I think the room is a magic place where it's very intimate. It's yourself. It's a PA running the camera. It's a reactor, and for 15 precious minutes, you're really getting their authentic opinions on whatever it is you're showing them. And there's a lot of the time where they really open up to you and you have a relationship over these 15 minutes that you're really bonding over things that they wouldn't normally bring up to anybody else other than you. And so I just think being in the room it's a really, I want to say magical, but it is magical. I mean, it's just a really, really great 15 minutes where it's just two people in a room having a conversation that is eventually going to be seen in front of millions of people.
Well, normally this and I'm really interested in Katie's opinion too, but it is something that doesn't happen as often as you think, even in your real life, even with your close friends, where you're kind of in that distraction free, no, we are just talking about this one thing, or even not only that, but it's just kind of one person talking about a thing kind of in a one way. And also, how often do you get the chance to sit down with a 6-year-old, or how often do you get a chance to, aside from your grandparents, sit down with a 90-year-old and really get to see, what their thoughts are on, cupcake, or it would sit down
the
with
artist, not the food.
To clarify, or sit down, with a teenager who is a DACA recipient and really get to talk to them about that. There are so many unique situations I've been put in since working here, where I get to have conversations that I never would have had outside of this company.
What about for you, Katie? What's your experience in the room?
I agree. It's way more intimate than you even think it's going to be. And it happens almost daily, where it's I'm hearing this very personal story I wasn't expecting, but I'm so grateful for them that they're sharing it. Especially the elders. They're my biggest soft spot. And it's maybe I'm showing them a Lady Gaga episode, and then all of a sudden it gets very personal, and I'm honored that they're even sharing it.
And that's the thing that often we end up sharing amongst in the creative side of the company, a lot of and then later when it gets to post, of course, too, the editors end up feeling the same way when they're not in the room, because they're the one that crafted it all.
Yeah.
But we end up, that feeling is what I think is very collective. Whenever we hear someone shared something, all producers, everyone just has this moment of oh, that's so great that they're willing to talk about this, because we all care so much about what we're doing and all of them. And it's the thing I miss the most of everything that I no longer do. It was always the room, and the idea of what that was, and the intimate relationships that you build over 15 minutes of time, but frequently enough that you do become it's not even yes, you're friends, but it's different. It's just a level of these people and they trust you.
And everybody after the baby came in and was asking me about the baby, Libby gave me a towel for him, so it's really special. You see them for such a short amount of time, but the relationship that you build in that amount of time is so much different than 15 minutes talking to anybody else.
It's the power of quality time.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That phrase gets thrown around a lot in terms of how often versus what's the quality of time. And yes, it's not a long amount of time, but it's it's potentially the most quality time that you have in a
There's
given
no
week.
phones, no distractions. You're really.
Well, both of you have been here long enough too to actually have worked with some of these people for a substantial amount of time now. So especially when you're dealing with people at various stages of their life, you're seeing them grow up. It's an extra layer of that too, where you're even seeing how they're changing, and it's just the way that it is, that even the talent that comes in, and a lot of them that I've not met, they have the relationship with you guys, and that's what is their connection to FBE, is through you. And that's a really cool thing too, that makes me very happy. Of always at one point when we were much smaller, I had this worry of how is the room going to maintain with so many different people. And I was worried on the Nickelodeon show, we trained these two, we only had 2 people, and we personally trained them, and then I still was I don't know about this, and all of that. And now going to the other side of it, you guys are just so incredible, and you're just such a great producers, and just interviewing people so well, and it's just no one would even know the difference really of when it was anymore. And a lot of the fans in the last year wouldn't even know that there was a time that it was always me interviewing literally everybody. They wouldn't even know. They don't even know I exist. And that's awesome. And that's a testament to you guys and talking to the reactors, where they do, obviously, especially the ones that were really little, that have been around 5-6 years, they have this very specific feeling towards me and Rafi because they were 8 and now they're 15, 16. But I still always end up asking them yeah, but do you have these types of things? And they always say, oh yeah, there's people that I feel the same way about now that aren't you, but it just isn't as prolonged.
Yeah,
right.
So
that's really special.
We're doing it right. All right, I want to keep going on this, but I know we got to get to the fan questions.
This has been Benny's entire segment.
I'm sorry, I talk too much. Everyone knows that.
Over on Instagram, and some of these are shorter than others, but these are all these are direct for Katie and Kyle.
Oh, cool.
Jam686 over on Instagram. How long have you guys worked at FBE?
I have worked a year and 8 months. It will be 2 years in February, so yeah.
I started December of 2015, so however long ago that is, a year and almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years then, yeah.
Yeah, December's 2 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah, crazy.
Selena Fay over on Twitter. What are the day-to-day duties of an AP?
This could take a while.
I don't know if we could pick a specific day.
I mean, sure, but maybe a higher level, just kind of life cycle, because to a degree you could say, well, your responsibility is the life cycle of an episode, and from development and pitching.
And it will be a little different because the shows are so different. So
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
So I mean, at the React channel, we come up with the ideas and then we get going on the script, and then
Do you want to clarify what you mean by script? Because a lot of people to this
True.
day still think,
They think that
everything
it is
we do is
scripted.
scripted.
I help myself basically with being like, oh, maybe if it's a food episode, after they try this food, maybe ask them these questions. So it's just like pushes for myself to know like what to ask them.
And that's the thing that I don't think people think about is like you need to have a script prepared because we ask all these questions and it's not like we're randomly asking them. Like there's a reason why we're choosing to ask what we're asking and trying to cover the topic properly. And there's a science and an art behind, like, it's not easy sometimes to write.
I'm still
some of these
learning
things.
almost 2 years later.
The script is for the producer, not
Right.
for the reactor.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. So we work on that, and then we're in the shoot room hosting the rooms, and then we help with the editing, but I don't do any of the editing, but like I don't want to take any credit. But like the editor sends me a cut and then I help give notes and everything, and then we work with graphics and give graphics notes.
I think they're very similar processes. I mean,
Yeah.
there are minor intricacies between the shows, but I mean that's the basic process. It's pitching, script writing, shooting, posting. We cover live coverage. We do live coverage as well. We track the analytics and comments and all that. So it's
Reply
really,
back.
Yeah, reply back. It's really cool because for me, coming from the TV world before being here, you're such a small cog in whatever it is you're doing. But here, you're involved in every step of the process from conception to completion to putting it out there. So it's really cool.
Yeah, I'll add that it's anything that you're watching is being touched by a decent amount of people, but it's being spearheaded. Like when you see who is the associate producer of that episode, like it's being spearheaded by that person. So when you see that in the credits, you can kind of have that, and that's where you'll usually, not always, because sometimes it's a timing thing, but usually it'll be that person at the end saying goodbye to you in the end of the episode. Typically that's their episode, but not always.
Right.
And there's a group effort sometimes, but that's the added thing. So even more so, they're usually the ones in the comments as well. So if you're there in the first 30 minutes, the way to say if I'm right or wrong, one of the best ways to actually get a reply isn't some of the ways people go about it. It's putting the name of the person that is actually potentially there.
Flatter me. Flatter me.
Yeah.
Reply.
I'll definitely reply to those.
And then now people are going to start putting Kyle and Katie and everything. It won't be you guys there.
Cool. Rachel Bake 16 over on Instagram. Did you always want to be a producer?
That's a good question. Growing up, I was a huge movie fan. I always wanted to be a director, even though when I was young, I didn't know what a director meant. I just thought that being Steven Spielberg looked cool. As I got older, I started to realize that I probably wouldn't be as good a director. And I quickly, when I moved to LA to pursue a career in the entertainment industry, I decided producing is what I wanted to do. And when I first started here, I started here in 2010. The digital space, I mean, obviously you were working a lot in it, but it wasn't a huge draw back in 2010. There wasn't that many people, really able to make it in the digital space. So coming here now and seeing what the digital space has become and what this company's been able to do has been really cool. So I don't think when I was young I could have ever imagined that this is what I would want to do, but it's been amazing.
Can we talk about like the most interesting thing about like what you shared about your previous professional experience, even going into our interview process? Because that's where my mind went when I heard Kyle answering this question of what did he maybe want to be when he grew up too?
Wait, which are we talking about?
The hosting.
Oh, geez, yeah. I was. This is not even a professional experience. When I was very young, at the end of high school, I was the host of the Vancouver Idol, which was, I guess, pretty cool. It wasn't even televised.
Oh.
This was not like a Canadian Idol.
Oh.
It was like it was a show where we had the best of Vancouver come in to compete for.
And you were the Ryan Seacrest.
I was Ryan Seacrest. Yeah.
I wonder if anyone from Vancouver that is listening.
If anybody's from Vancouver, please let me know. Very proud Vancouverite right here, even though I'm wearing a Dodgers hat.
And what about you, Katie? Did you always want to do this?
I knew I wanted to work in the entertainment industry since I was very little, but I just didn't know in what facet. Of course, when I was like 5, I only see actresses, so I wanted to be an actress. But then like as I got older, I went through the directing phase, or I even went through like maybe I want to do makeup, or but then I quickly realized from working on other sets that producing was what I liked.
You had a great PA story from that Disney Channel Stars thing. What was that?
Yeah, I PA'd at the Disney Channel games, which was very fun. And I still have the shirt that I wear from it frequently.
When you've brought that up to certain people, they freak out. Some other staff members here, when they found that out, like, why'd I watch that?
It's like finding out someone was like a PA on like Legends of the Hidden Temple or something. You're like, what?
That would be really cool.
Okay, let's see here. Justice Hernandez over on Twitter. Can you guys remember some of the favorite episodes that you have worked on? Is there something that stands out to you in terms of something you're really proud of?
Would Lady Gaga stand out because didn't Gaga notice it?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite episodes, partially because she tweeted it, so that goes up for me. And then another one was Do Elders Know Sex Toys? So it's definitely
that's
one of my
favorite
favorites.
episodes just to watch. Purely, it's amazing.
So, barring your age, even though it is age-gated now, but you should definitely watch that episode. There's things in that, you just never see that. And in a way, like, I've thought about what else can we do like that, even though I know we're going to get demonetized instantly. But it's amazing.
I want to do a sequel so badly.
Very funny. I think that I've got two favorite episodes. They're very on either end of the spectrum, but I really loved the Generations React to the Election episode that we did, because I thought it was a very fair episode. You know, obviously a lot of our the people that come in here are LA based, and we had a much more liberal group of people who come in, but we specifically brought in conservative people, Trump supporters, and we had a really balanced episode of Democrats and Republicans talking about their thoughts on the election.
It's fascinating to watch now with what ended up happening, and then to go back and realize, it's like it really was an interesting representation of the country, even in LA.
No, I love that episode. I actually watched that recently again just because I wanted to check it out recently. And on the other side was an episode we just released recently. Was the Elders React to the For the Dick Challenge, just because one of the other producers, JC's interaction with Norm is
That's in the vlog.
It's the funniest thing. No, not even the funniest thing since I've been to the company. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. I just think it's amazing.
I don't remember which vlog. It's an early vlog on FBE too, but it's also in there where JC is spelling out DICK about a dozen times.
And it's JC's first episode as well, so that's what made it even more amazing. It was,
and that's what it's amazing, those things. And even that Norman is 93 or 94 years old, and it's crazy that we still get to have that perspective. I remember one episode that we filmed with him. I don't remember which one it was, but was asking about technology changing in his lifetime, and he firmly was like, "Well, I remember when talking came to movies."
crazy. I can't imagine.
And he firmly remembered. He was like 7. And he's
insane.
like, and he was there, like, and he's a very interesting guy. We have to. He usually never ends up on anything on the React channel because we actually pick him up from his home and bring him here, and it's harder for us to do that during the week than it is on the weekend. We usually film Elders React, but that's want to do more of that. Got to get the bus, get the React bus over to them. Give them
React shuttle bus. Angela Dawn over on Twitter. How long does it take? And maybe Katie, you can pick an episode or a couple series on RC. How long does it take to film an episode of React?
Well, I'd say it's about 15 minutes average in the room per person.
Yeah.
So, and then it's like, minimum 6 people for us to 12 people in an episode.
Yeah.
Whatever math that is, I can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, we're 15 minutes as well. Sometimes if it's a more complex episode, we'll get an extra 5 minutes, and then we're 9 or 10 people in an episode. So
with Let's Plays or gaming being an obvious exception.
Right. And that's just the shoot
True.
itself.
but we're talking about how long it takes from shooting to
I don't know
release.
what
The
I'm not sure what
question
they were
was,
asking.
Benny, if you were listening,
Well,
the
but
question was how long does it take to film?
Sure.
So if we're answering that in the strictest sense, it's
Fair
basically
enough.
15 minutes
Fair
a
enough.
person.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit longer in some cases. But then then there's obviously there's tons of hours of editing and graphics, and then even uploading and reporting and analytics.
But I mean, for us, we do some really quick turnaround episodes, so we can shoot something, on a Tuesday and release it on a Thursday and get things up really, really quickly.
We still talk about the Star Wars trailer episode that you staff as kind of like our golden beacon of how fast we've ever turned something around.
Was that faster than the Trump tape episode?
Was. Yeah,
because that was same day too.
That was same day, but it released the next morning. We actually finished Star Wars and put it right out.
I thought we put it up that night.
The Trump tapes?
Yeah.
I think that was the next morning. Maybe you're
don't know.
either way. The system doesn't work very well. We figured it out, but both of those things ended up. No, I think Trump tapes ended up with me editing half of it,
You and Andrea Winslow.
Yeah. Because Andrea hadn't, we like threw it on her when she had never edited that show before. And she put it together and I'm like, all right, I'm going to start sound mixing and we're going to put it all together.
Great episode.
Which I do, the one thing I will say about that, as much as I want to do those things more frequently because getting things out faster is obviously good, I do love that the couple times that we decide to do it, it really gives a different energy of like people being like, all right, we're in this together. We're going to do this. We don't care how long it takes. Let's go. And that's where even for me, I'm like, I'm jumping into the edit bay. Like it's like old school. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So it's definitely, it gives you some adrenaline doing those types of things.
Totally.
7 knees are 7 over on Instagram. What difficulties do you guys encounter when looking for topic ideas?
For us, I just think we do so many episodes, and we're pitching. We do 2 shoots a week, so we're shooting 6 episodes a week, and inside of both those pitch rounds, we're pitching between 15 and 20 topics. So it's there's always so many things to choose from, but there is only so much that you can do. So I think it's just how much we do. We have to dive really, really deep sometimes.
And there has to be a reason behind it, right? That's from somebody on the outside, that always seems to be the biggest stumbling block is it can't just be a thing because the thing is there, which a lot of
particular to that generation. It's got to be,
there has to be like questions that you can ask
and obviously, like Taylor Swift, because for example, releases a big music video, after a new album every few weeks, and it's the biggest thing online. But you're not going to cover Taylor Swift, 3 times in 3 months. So you're always trying to think of new things, and you want to figure out new angles to talk to people about. So the challenge is fun because we get to be online, looking around and finding things. So even though it's a challenge because you're trying to find interesting, cool things, I mean that's what people do every day for fun.
Yeah, and not as their job. Yeah. People are doing that at their jobs.
We get paid to do that, so it's crazy.
Katie, with certain shows like Food now being at like 100 episodes, that can't be as easy as it used to be to come up with things to
it's getting harder, but we do heavily go off of comments. So it's almost a bigger challenge if no one's commenting, requesting certain things. But yeah, like Guess That Food is definitely getting harder. But we still got some ideas.
I always keep forgetting because one of my favorite, I love all the shows, but I really love Do They Know It. I'm a big Do They Know It fan. I never miss an episode of Do They Know It. And when I see the 90s...
Teens React, they'll never watch. Not interested. Benny doesn't watch that show.
See, those shows, I'm still part of the process to watch every single episode, so I definitely see those. But I love Do They Know It. And because if you watch me in Staff Right, I'm always like, please be 90s, please be 90s. It's the only thing I know. Yeah. So I love Do Teens Know 90s music. And all the time I'm like, oh, right, I've got this great song. Oh, right. I'm like, I probably should tell you guys. And I always forget to do it because I have all of these things that I'm like, I don't think we've ever done that band. Do you remember the band Live?
No, but...
See, exactly. There were some big hits from Live.
What's their big hit?
Their big hit was Lightning Crashes, but they also had I Alone, which is the one I want you to do because it was the first hit, and that was my favorite song when I was 15.
How does it go?
I Alone?
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to make me sing?
I'm a big 90s fan, so I want to see that.
So it was, the chorus is, I alone love you, I alone tempt you, I alone love you, fear is not the end, love is. And then there's Lightning Crashes.
Lightning Crashes sounds more familiar to me.
That was a big one.
That has dolphins in it, doesn't it?
No, that was their later album. They weren't as good, but
was that when Dolphins Cry?
Yeah, that's them too.
That's Live?
Yeah, their band's name is Live.
Oh, cool. They're good.
Love will lead us.
Yeah.
All right.
Katie has an expression on her face for those listening to the audio that she's slowly realizing what she signed herself up for when she agreed to do the podcast.
I've just never heard these songs, and I feel
Dolphins
bad.
Cry is a cool song. Yeah.
That would have been 2000s, I think, even by the time that came out. That would have been 2000s.
I didn't recognize I Alone until Benny started singing it. Jay, do you remember? No, Jay doesn't remember.
It's so old. That song is so old that MTV, when it used to all be music videos, used to have a thing that they label certain music videos as buzzworthy, and that was like the newest, kind of coolest new songs that were just released, and I Alone was buzzworthy.
I like it.
I Alone. I saw them live once.
We're moving on. Lucas with several Z's over on Instagram. What do you guys do in your free time? So there was another one that was like, and maybe this is a separate, but maybe we'll try and dual answer this question. Alif.bangsawan over on Instagram wanted to know, what would you be doing if FBE didn't exist? So I don't know. I guess those are separate.
Completely separate questions.
I thought it was combined.
It would be great if FBE did this. I could just do everything I do in my free time all the time. That'd be really cool.
See, that's where my brain went. Is they would just do their hobbies all the time if they could somehow.
You could
start with hobbies, I guess.
Well, lately I've been into cooking. So
I miss cooking.
I think that answers both my question. I would, if I wasn't at FBE, maybe I would
What
be
type
a chef.
of cooking?
I don't like.
Are there specific cuisines you like, or baking versus cooking? Or
I mean, honestly, all of it. I've just been really trying to learn like new tricks and stuff, and I've been just kind of trying
Why
to
do
do
you never
everything.
bring anything in?
I don't bake as much as I should, but I could bake something and bring it
You
in.
could bring cooked goods.
You want my shrimp to bring in?
Yes, I would love your shrimp to bring in. That'd be great.
I used to do a lot of cooking, and that's the old joke of like, the old joke, not really, but like when it was just me and Rafi doing all of this in our apartment, like part of I was like, I would cook for us. I was like, all right, we're gonna do this stuff. So there's a few things. I used to cook a lot, and I used to make a great broccoli cheddar soup from scratch, like from scratch.
Impressive.
And I basically
like he would melt the cheese and put the broccoli in it. He did both parts.
Damn.
But I miss cooking, and sometimes I think about I want some type of cooking, actual like chopped like show. I'd love to figure
You
out.
tweeted that
I was
recently
just
in the
gonna say,
middle
I
of the
saw
night.
you.
You were talking about Chopped.
But I would love to figure out what is some type of cooking competition. And this is something we should talk about, Katie. Like, can we figure out some type of cooking show that we actually cook?
Katie,
I'm actually always pitching that to Rafi.
Oh, did it never go
so
through?
let's both of us pitch together next
Okay,
time.
well, we need to figure out how we do it in our spin that makes it work.
top 3 cooking and or baking shows, if you watch any of those, Katie.
I love the Barefoot Contessa. She's definitely my favorite. And then Top Chef for a competition one, and then the Great British Bake Off.
You got 2 of my 3. Those would be 2, and then Chopped would replace the Barefoot Contessa.
I've
Benny
never
likes
fully
Chopped.
watched the British Bake Off, but I loved the one that they did for, it was like a charity one where like it was all comedians basically, and they were all terrible, like, you know, in bakers. So it was just like which one is least bad.
It's fascinating how entertaining it is as people just sit and wait for things to rise in that show, but I love it.
I'm not a big cooking fan or watching cooking fan, unfortunately.
You're missing out.
I know.
Kyle,
I like to eat food.
What are your answers here?
Do you have any free time
I was
anymore?
going to say, I honestly don't. I go home now.
Keeping a child alive?
I'm trying to keep my child alive. I'm in bed every night by 9 p.m. I live a sad life.
But see, the way that you mix this up, we were talking about this before the podcast, is social experiments with your child.
Yes.
You have this unique opportunity to safely mess with your child. So, for
What
example,
are the safe ideas?
Okay, so I have a couple of them. My 2 favorites is 1, do not let them know that white bread exists, and see how long you can go without them finding out and thinking that bread is wheat bread. And that is bread, and they'll love it, and they'll think this is awesome. This is bread. Now, granted, eventually they're going to end up discover white bread, and their mind might be blown. But you can make them think that that's bread, and maybe they never like white bread, and it's healthier for them.
That's interesting. But you know what? I always feel bad though, because my mom, when I was young, I'm Jewish, and she told me that Santa Cohen existed, and
I've never heard that before.
so whenever kids would talk about Santa Claus, she'd be like, "It's okay because you've got Santa Cohen." I'd be like, "Great!" And then I remember one time I was at school talking to my friends, and they were like, "Well, you don't have Santa Claus," and the teacher was there too, and I was like, "Well, we've got Santa Cohen." The teacher was like, "There's no Santa Cohen." I was like, "What? The teacher?"
She should have played along.
It's totally different than the bread. I mean, this is a good social experiment. Now, as soon as they go to school, they're going to see sandwiches without...
But then their mind's just gonna be blown.
Right, but what happens? It's safe, and it's fascinating.
Yeah.
The other one is video games.
Yeah.
And what you should do is you should get an NES and have that be the first gaming thing that he ever plays. And then you can, and this is a little bit messed up, but you mess with the idea of how fast technology can actually move, and every month it gets better, and you're just like, every month is like, and now this came out, and this is new. Like, what does it
But
do?
then he gets horrifically depressed that it takes a year for the
Exactly.
iPhone.
Yeah.
But is it just video games, or am I starting like on dial-up internet too?
Maybe.
And like brick phones.
I just think it's a fascinating thing that you can, in a year,
He
in
goes to school
1
with a
year of
brick phone.
time, as soon as they can understand the
But
idea
they
of
can't,
technology.
Betty, this is where your idea falls apart. They can't process time yet.
Yeah.
So they don't
How old
understand.
is he? How old is he in this fantasy?
I don't know, 6? I don't know. I think
Because he's going to go to his friend's house at 6, and he's going
I
to see
would
the
love to
Xbox One.
I would like to know safe ideas. If anybody listening thinks there's a safe thing that you could do with a child you're raising, let us know in the comments.
One thing I am planning on doing, and my wife will not let me do it, but I don't want to start him watching stupid kids shows. I want to start him watching like Pulp Fiction, be like his first movie, and just see what happens. Like, will he end up being like really cool and smart and like edgy? Like, who knows?
You're trying to make an edgy choice. Like, I'm an alternative kid.
Okay. Cristianbt over on Instagram. Are you guys working on any new pilots? Is there anything you can tell us about?
Katie, you can?
Yeah. I am working on it's Can Parents Guess Kids movie descriptions. And it's been so cute because the kids zero in on things about the movie that I'm like, what? I think I saw that same movie. I've also seen Moana, and that's not what it happens.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's been very cute. And then the parents, we already shot it. The parents loved guessing it. It was so fun.
I
Can't
heard
wait
about
to
that,
see
and
it.
I'm really excited to watch that. Sounds really cool.
And we recently, if you didn't catch it, we just put out a pilot called Too Much Information that I meant to talk about at the top of the show, and I totally forgot. So that came out, and that's like a memory game where you're told a bunch of like 10 different, well, a lot more than 10 different facts, and then you're presented with 10 facts from the fact you just heard, and can you remember them all? And that is actually being done as a thing that we're maybe going to bring to television, and so we put it out to incubate it on the channel to see, do people like this? Does this work? What can we learn from it? So that just came out. But we're always trying to come up with more stuff, and in a way, inside of Teens React and YouTubers React, there's been new formats all the time, like the top 10s even being one of these new things that we'll probably talk about in a little bit as well. But we're always coming up with new stuff.
Yeah.
We want to try to do more new stuff.
Totally.
FreakByers over on Twitter wants to know, what are your guys' favorite bands at the moment?
Oof.
I only listen to old bands. I love Guns N' Roses. They're my favorite band. But like current bands, I'm bad about that. I don't listen to.
I don't listen to new bands really, to be honest. I other than the things that I'm looking at to pitch.
It doesn't have to be. This was not. What are your favorite bands that have had a charting hit?
It's true.
Eminem.
Eminem, 100%.
Eminem and Guns N' Roses.
Yep.
And there's no one new at all.
Oh, I like new artists, but I am not a big fan of new bands.
We're talking about bands or artists.
I think you can go either way.
You can define this however you
I'm
want.
going to say I really, I mean, she's not even new anymore, but I love everything that I hear from Melanie Martinez, and I'm very excited for her new album.
I claim complete ignorance on this, but I am completely obsessed with Twice's new single.
Oh, the K-pop?
Yeah, Me Like You, the Like You
that one
Like
really
You.
big, yeah.
Oh my God! Like I think I was casually aware of Twice before. I've been.
They were
getting
on
more upset.
one of the React episodes we did had a Twice song in it at one point.
Yeah, it was
Like,
recently.
BTS at this point, I'm not even like lying. Like I would go to a show 100. So many of their
K-pop
singles.
shows. Some of the groups are no longer together. Like my favorite was 21, and they're gone. And I think 4 Minute is also not around. And I really like
Do you
them.
know if-
I love 4 Minute.
Oh man, yeah.
That was
Do you know if EXID is still together? Because that sounded like 90s Janet Jackson.
I'm not
to me a little
100%.
bit
We covered
when
them
that-
too at one point.
I know. So I was
This
really
is how you get
obsessed
exposed to all of these bands.
I know. Honestly, like all of my K-pop
I will
knowledge
tell you
comes
that
from our K-pop reaction.
what about this question? What's the most recent concert we all went to?
Oh, geez. Elton John.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yep.
Madion, who we've also covered.
Yeah.
I think mine was Haim.
Ooh, good call.
I really like them.
They were at the Greek, right?
Yeah, I went to a different show, but yes, they were at the Greek.
I went to Poppy.
Oh, that's
no,
right.
a bunch of us
all.
went to Poppy.
No, I went to like the actual the tour,
full concert.
the full concert of Poppy, and it's interesting. Like I had listened to some of Poppy's music, and I didn't realize just how catchy it was until I was at the concert and realized, even though I only listened a couple, like maybe once or twice, I knew like all the songs like pretty well, and it's definitely a unique experience as you'd imagine it to be at the Poppy show with the great DJ of Charlotte that was the opener for a half hour, and
That's awesome.
they had close-ups of her hands doing DJing.
I would like to go to the Poppy
Of
show.
course. Well, that's the thing. Poppy, lots of things happen at the Poppy concert, but she would talk about how is this the greatest show you've ever been to in your life? Like, and
amazing.
Talking about like just repeating Los Angeles over and over and over again. But then it's like it's like, do you trust me? Do you trust me? Do you love me? Will you do anything I say? Drink, and then it became like drink this liquid, and then Titanic's handing out just unnamed liquids out to the crowd.
Wow.
Did you drink it?
I wasn't close enough to the stage to be handed this, but Poppy.
Poppy. Can't go wrong with Poppy.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Poppy.
I think it's one of the greatest sagas we have here is the Poppy saga with the kids.
Poppy's the best guest that's ever been here because she was here, but was she? That's true.
Bertamaria 10 over on YouTube. What is the craziest city or country you've ever visited, and will you come to Iceland?
I would love to come to Iceland.
I've
Yes.
been to Iceland.
Oh, cool.
Is that Reykjavik? Is that in Iceland?
Let me clarify. I was in the Iceland airport.
Okay.
On a stopover to Paris, I was in the Iceland airport.
So
it was cool.
The question
Great
is, what is
airport.
the craziest place you've been?
The Iceland airport.
It was two questions. Katie, any
Well,
city
the only
or-
place I've been out of the country is Paris, and I don't know if it's crazy, but I loved it. I guess New Orleans is kind of
Orleans
crazy.
is crazy.
In a good way, though. I
I'm
love
about to
New
go
Orleans.
to speak at this conference, and
You've
I only
never
went
been
there
before?
one time to go to a football game. That was the reason why I went. So I didn't really spend much time there, though I did take a voodoo tour.
You went all the way there for a Saints game?
Yeah, I drove from Florida to there because the Packers were playing the Saints.
You a big Green Bay fan?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know
In terms of if I'm gonna say,
Why not Giants or Jets?
I don't have memories as to why this happened, but they were terrible. My favorite player of all time is Don Majkowski. So pre-Brett Favre, he got injured and Brett took over, and I remember being so devastated and then very happy later. But anyway, so I drove all the way to New Orleans to see the Packers lose. Then I went to Lambeau, which was incredible, and
So
they
you
lost.
followed the Packers around?
Well, it was more of like I wanted to see them, and they were closest they were ever coming was New Orleans, so I went, and then they lost. And then with Lambeau, I was about to move to LA, and I took my dad to go to Lambeau, knowing it would be a
That's
big
cool.
deal just as a sports thing, and went, and they lost that game, and then they won the last 8 games in the first 15 the next year.
So
And then I saw them again,
This is
and they lost
this is
again.
This is
you
a
should stop- you
precursor
should stop
to
going
the
to Packers
Benny
games.
NFL podcast that will be coming out in a couple months, where Benny goes through fantasy football advice with Luke, and who else can you talk to? Mark. There's a
Derek.
fantasy football podcast advice show. Moving along to industry or company questions. Again, hashtag FBE Podcast. Use that hashtag in either YouTube, primarily YouTube, although we do pull some questions from Twitter and Instagram. Tanner's Books and Beyond over on YouTube. I've got a question for you. Will you guys ever...
You skipped that he's from Canada. Kyle will be happy about
this
that.
guy's from Canada? Where in Canada?
He just says from Canada. As
Very,
a general
very vague.
region.
Very vague.
Tanner, if you can hear this, if you watch episode 22 of the podcast, somebody get in touch with Tanner. Let us know what part of Canada
What is
you're
West Coast, East Coast? Canada's so big. Come on.
I've got a question for you. Will you guys ever react to podcasts on the show? There are some great podcasts out there that are very big, like My Favorite Murder, Welcome to Night Vale, My Brother and Me. Plus, it's a great way to promote this podcast on the other channels.
First of all, this is on the channel that has the most subscribers to this podcast, and it doesn't do anything. But that's besides the point.
Yeah, that's okay. Maybe people don't know about it because of the algorithm, Benny. Because they don't watch a single episode of the podcast. They're never served it on their homepage.
And this is
Benny.
a phenomenal segue to why it is difficult to ever cover something like a podcast on the shows. It's yes, some of these podcasts are very big, but they don't cross over into an area that if we did that episode, not enough people would probably be interested enough to click on it. And if this was like 3 years ago, we might be more open to it. But as we've talked about before, if you put out something that people are not that familiar with and not enough people decide to click on it in the first hour that it gets uploaded, YouTube will say no one should get this episode, and that's where you see these underperforming episodes across our channels all the time because it just wasn't the right thing at the right time, even when we know, and that's the big frustration point, we know that so many of you do want to watch every single episode of any of the shows, but you just aren't given it on your homepage, and so you're very quick to be like, oh, this other thing got uploaded, I'll watch that, and you don't even realize, and then if you get too locked into that system, you might never be recommended an FBE video again.
And that's why you see so many creators out there talking about the bell and talking about Notification Squad and all that other stuff because they're desperately trying to get around the fact that their videos aren't on the homepage. They're always going to be in your sub box, but so many people don't even understand that the sub box is different from the
it's
homepage.
crazy.
Yeah,
So
but
that's why
I would like to, and I think it's also interesting, similar to anime, but in a totally different way, hard to cover something like a podcast. What do you show?
too
What
big.
do you listen to? How can, and beyond, because what we haven't cracked yet, though I've thought about this a lot in the sense of like a different type of reaction that could be, hey, these 8 reactors, you have to watch this whole movie or something before you come in, and we're going to maybe just show you clips, but you're actually going to have watched it, and we're going to talk about it. And I think there is something to that idea. If it's a different show though at that point, it's not like for the first.
I mean, we've covered like whole TV shows, so I think you could cover a podcast. I don't think you could cover podcasts in general the same way you couldn't cover.
They would still need to have something happen that goes viral and
But like Serial?
yeah, when that was going on, yeah.
A lot of the bigger podcasts though do have video streams that have that in video element that could be a highlight reel from the.
Well, I suppose like Tanner gave us some examples. Leave comments on some of these podcasts. It's something we can track, and then maybe if we decide to do it at some point to try it, we could give it a shot. And also, we always like the suggestions. How do you think we should cover the podcast?
Yeah.
But it's going to be tough because of just the reality that it's not going to be as big a thing as things that are really going viral.
Yeah.
So it's hard right now with the state of YouTube to go outside the box too much.
Ted Karampilas. Sorry, Ted. YouTube. Any progress on the Let's Play of the Simpsons arcade game machine?
That's a thing? That's become a thing that people want us to do? Where did that even come from?
I think either in the vlog or other places they've seen, we have a Simpsons arcade machine in the office. So I think they want a full Let's Play playthrough.
Here's the story of that Simpsons arcade machine.
I would love to hear this, actually.
So the Simpsons arcade game for me and Rafi was like the game we loved the most. Like a lot of people, I think, at that time period, where you'd only be able to go to it at an arcade or at a movie theater. It was always at a movie theater, that Simpsons machine.
It was a pizza joint in my hometown.
There you go.
It was at Papa Gino's.
And being giant Simpsons fans, it was so exciting that there actually was a Simpsons game that actually was pretty fun. But like all arcade machines, it's just so much money because it's impossible to win and like all these things. So we went through our whole life never even getting close to finishing the game and always talking about, man, one day wouldn't it be great if we could actually have our own Simpsons arcade machine? And then John overheard this over the years of our friendship of me saying, like, if we can find it for like under $800, like I'll buy it. Like I don't care, even though it's a worthless purchase. I don't care. It is what it is. And then when we moved into the very first office, we did not know. John found it for that price.
Wow.
So granted, it was me that still had to pay for it, but still.
No, I think we took up a collection. We surprised you guys.
I know that the company at the time
producers
brought me and Rafi out to show that they had gotten the machine for the office.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
We should make a movie about that story. That's so touching.
So it's definitely a thing that while it was new, at one point it was like everyone wanted to play it, and then it became too loud.
Look, I'm throwing this out there in case this works for a potential pitch or something, but like in Pasadena or Glendale, there is a giant warehouse full of these old arcade game machines that you can go and just
that would be cool.
Just play really like cool. Mortal Kombat or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or any arcade game you can think of. They have it.
That's
to play
awesome.
the game like a tournament. Talk to Derek and Mark. But to play it like on those are the gaming producers. But to do like a tournament, but at an arcade machine.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. That was it. Let's talk about some of the feedback we've gotten.
So this segment, again, depends on what's going on over the last week. We'll sometimes directly address negativity in episodes or what people were saying in the comments. So we have a little bit of that and a little bit of something else. So I want to talk about kind of the new offshoot format, the top 10s, which is definitely very popular. And we definitely see the comments. People just seemingly are loving this, which is, if you're not familiar, it's the top 10 most streamed digital songs from Spotify, the top 10 most viewed YouTube videos, and then the reactors are all guessing, and then we reveal to them at the end. And people are loving it because they're guessing along, they're playing along, and they're doing very well for us.
It's a great play along.
So there's two things with it, though, and it represents what we were kind of just talking about of how the interestingness of YouTube and the way the algorithms work. So on the one side, similar even on like the React channel, where the laugh challenge is always this thing that is so popular, and that being so popular helps the rest of the content in the algorithm because it has these boosts where everyone is watching. Similar to top 10s, when there's these dips, when we discover something that works, it's like, oh, we got to try to get more of these out. And that's where you sometimes see an overabundance of things of like, oh, all of a sudden, whether it's on Staff React or on OG, that you'll see, oh man, there's a lot of try not to this and try not to that. And it's because, well, that's what's the most popular, and we need these boosts of viewership to help the algorithm get the other things recommended more. So the top 10s work very well on that because when it works, it works. And like the top 10 digital songs just did like 1 million views in less than a day, which used to happen a lot more frequently, but not as much anymore. But at the same time, one of them didn't do as well, which was the couples. And the romantic comedy movies. That we see, movies don't seem to do as well as music and YouTube stuff. But even that did okay, but didn't quite work. So you can never win. That's on one side of things. But that's where you're seeing a lot of the experimentation. And what I can implore you guys as the 5%, if you ever log into YouTube and see an FBE video in your recommended page, please click on the video. Even if you don't, maybe you are the 5% that love all this stuff, but you don't like one of the shows, which makes sense. We do a lot of shows. Watch it anyway. It's just one of those things that, like, as the 5%, I will task you to it of like every person
you
helps
can open
a little
tab.
bit more.
You can open a new tab.
Click it and let it play on mute all the way through, just so the algorithm that gets as many people as possible seeing it recommended and clicked on, because that just could seed it to thousands of more people potentially. So please do.
They don't realize that you're kind of, especially if you're in there in that first hour.
Anywhere in the first day, but the first hour especially.
But if you're seeing it on your homepage, almost treat yourself as like a Nielsen household for those that understand like Nielsen ratings in the US or TV ratings in the US. If you're seeing that on your homepage in that first hour, you clicking on it does have that exponential impact that Benny is talking about, of potentially allowing it to be seen by hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of other people, which is crazy. It's crazy you have that power.
And the fact that if it's being recommended to you, if you don't click enough times, it'll stop recommending even you guys, and you won't know we uploaded. So anyway, you guys probably will because you're probably finding it in other places.
They hit the bell already, Benny.
So other thing is try not to get mad. So there was a recent staff try not to get mad that did very, very well. But my goodness, in the comments, the amount of people angry that everyone hates Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the comments.
It was all that and Kelsey's BTS shirt.
Well, but that's normal. The anger over how could you hate Suicide Squad? And I'm fascinated by this because when the last Try Not to Get Mad that was on the FBE channel, the fury of Batman versus Superman and everyone being so mad and people were mad. Why do people care so much about?
And also, doesn't everybody know those movies are bad? That's a common knowledge.
Apparently, see, you guys are saying right, but apparently not, guys. This proves no that people love apparently Suicide Squad.
I've never, until I saw these comments, I didn't know anybody liked those movies. Like, I'm very surprised.
I haven't seen either, so maybe I shouldn't speak on it.
I haven't either. I've just heard they're awful.
This is the problem. Here's what you're now going to get some people mad because now you have said that you haven't even watched it, and that's where people get upset, where they say they hate something and they never even watched it.
Yeah, you can't.
Fair. That scene was bad though, and I'm sticking to my feelings in that challenge.
So were you both in that episode and you both got mad?
I was in Try Not to Mad,
And you both got mad about Suicide Squad?
Yeah, well, I mean, I thought it was a bad scene.
It didn't really make me mad. I just didn't really understand what was going on. I thought they were like swimming in molasses or something.
People I saw, and it's interesting on the Batman versus Superman, where a lot of the comments were talking about like the scene is what the scene is, but it was supposed to mean PTSD to a degree, and that this was showing Batman's PTSD is what I think, and they're saying that by being angry at it, you're getting angry at this issue.
Come on.
Katie's like, yeah, all right.
Anyway, it's very interesting, as is the general thing, though, that factors into, and that's the same thing that I'm talking to the wrong people, but spread the word to the rest of the people that are leaving the comments. Every time you disagree with anyone in any of these episodes, it's totally fine to disagree with them, but getting so viscerally angry is not really what we even stand for as a brand. We want that dialogue. We want that discussion. So talk about why you really liked Suicide Squad, not get so angry at people and hating them for hating it. Instead
and they could potentially start a discussion with one of us if they are, in a much more, what's the word I'm looking for, constructive way of discussing.
And also realizing that like there are other people that feel that way too, and why get so angry, because that's the thing. A lot of times we don't mean for it. We try to cast inside of the React shows a mix. We're taking an educated guess a lot of the time because we can't necessarily know of like when we know these people really like this particular thing or this artist, we know this person is not going to, and then we think these might not, but then more often than not only one or two people end up on an island as being the ones that didn't like something, and they just get so attacked, and it's like, why attack when I guarantee you there's thousands of people that feel the same way. Just talk about like, this is why I think you should give it a chance.
You need to take a little bit of like self-analysis and like stock of yourself if you're putting that much of your identity into like hating something else. I saw a great video, which I'll be sharing all of you in the weekly video thread that we send out internally. But it was Tim Minchin, who I believe is Australian or British. No, I think Australian. He kind of gave 10 life lessons to in a commencement speech, and one of the pieces of advice he was giving out is like be pro stuff, not just anti stuff, in terms of how you're defining your passions and your identity and stuff like that. So if you find yourself leaving a lot of comments aggressively being like, mean about something or attacking something, try and figure out the other side of that and speak about.
Also realize how boring and pointless the shows become if all you're watching is everyone saying the same exact thing that feels the same way you do. That's not what this should be.
Just not a happy existence too, just to be so outwardly negative about everything.
I will say, I would be pretty hated if I was a reactor because I'm extremely opinionated.
I'm very hated when I see myself in the comments. I'm very hated, but
I think that's just because you're so competitive.
Yeah, no, I deserve it. It's okay.
Also, you only remember the bad things, Kyle. That's YouTube psychology 101. Like, you will never remember a positive comment, but you will absolutely remember the one negative.
I guarantee you there's Kyle fans out there.
Oh, there are. I've seen them.
Yeah, great. Well,
not in this room, but out there. Are we good?
Yeah.
Cool. So at the end of each, I don't know if you guys have watched any of these, but at the end of the episodes, we always come up with a hashtag so that the people listening, at least on YouTube, can get a chance at a shout out in next week's episode if they listen and find this one. Some people skip to the end. I know that because they leave the hashtag 5 minutes after the video is released. But it doesn't matter.
We should hide it in the middle. I keep saying we should hide it in the middle.
I can't. I'm not good enough as a producer, Benny, to adjust our outline that quickly. But is there a phrase? What do you think the hashtag for this episode should be?
What about hashtag Suicide Squad goals?
Oh, wait a minute. Suicide Squad goals. That's interesting.
I'll defer.
Katie, what's your...
I don't know. I mean, something about trying to brainwash Kyle's baby or something.
Baby brainwash? People are going to think that's what's going on here. Baby brainwash. Pretty good.
That is... Again, I can't emphasize safe enough, but sure.
It's easy to spell.
Baby brainwash is the hashtag this week.
And optional, but leave an idea that Kyle can do to actually brainwash Taylor using that.
Maybe I'll do it.
Safely.
Maybe I'll do it.
As
That might be our next pilot.
as possible.
It's going to be a very long game pilot, though.
We're starting now. It's our boyhood. It's going to be an episode that comes out in 10 years with your son. And he won't even know until 10 years from now that we show him.
It's going to be food. It's a people versus food
it's
with
white
bread. Okay, so what you guys are seeing in front of you right now is a list of usernames and countries. And these are people that left the hashtag Be Yourself from last week's podcast.
Cool.
As well as people that let us know.
I like that we go from this uplifting podcast last week to about being yourself to baby brainwash this week.
Look, you never know what you're going to get on the FBE podcast. Sometimes it's more fulfilling than others. So yeah, these are people that listened last week, or a select few of the people that listened last week, as well as if you let us know where you're listening from, the keyword being from, in the comments, we will do our best to shout out your country, because there's at least one incredibly badass member of the 5% in each one of these countries, which continues to blow me away on a weekly basis.
So cool.
Really cool. Let's just go around a circle, and then we'll just keep repeating them until we run out of names. But shout out this week to Crazy Hydra,
A. Campos,
Adam Binder,
Amelia Kurowska,
Amy Awesome,
Andres Baez,
B-Day Freckles,
Beyond the Milky Way,
Bert Tamaria 10.
I love this, Braka Braka Boom Boom M,
Brian Petro,
Brian T,
Brittany Crago,
Cecilia Bruce,
Dennis Schmidt,
Different Rovens,
Dolphin in a Top Hat,
Duchess R,
Edwin Vigil,
Ekasit the Weakest Turtle,
Elaine Crandall. There's a lot of great band names in it this week.
Eva Clinton,
Graham Moore,
Immortal Pablo,
Another amazing name. Juano Santabeñez,
Caden Knock,
Kendrick Harris,
Christopher Watts. Sorry, got lost.
Leah Hole,
Logan Clark,
Madden Skin 2. Oh, that 2 days ago. Madden Skin.
Margaret Finlayson,
Marty,
Newsy Steve,
Orion Jackson,
Pad Padangs,
Pola 10 Foric,
Prakash D,
Raphael Amiti,
Richard Carasas. I'm so sorry for the pronunciations.
Yeah, they are so used to us screwing up names at this point, it's not even funny. I think it's more surprising if we actually pronounce something correct than incorrect. Ricky Byong,
Rodrigo Ortiz,
Roy Raba,
Skakid 472,
Skycott,
Surya TV,
Super Mustache 555,
Thomas Alexander,
Tim Smith,
and Want Shum,
and shout out this week to Argentina,
Australia,
Belarus,
Belgium,
Bulgaria,
Canada,
Chile,
Colombia,
Czech Republic,
Denmark,
Dubai,
Germany,
Greece,
Iceland,
India,
Indonesia,
Ireland,
Italy,
Japan,
Kenya,
Mexico,
Morocco,
Norway,
Paraguay,
Peru.
Spain.
USA.
Special shout out to Colorado, California, Maryland, Kansas, and Michigan.
I feel like we're in Street Fighter where it'd be like Japan.
Iceland got a lot of love this episode.
Probably the same person.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Well, there might be a couple. I've been fascinated in the comments, and I encourage you guys to this week when the audio comes out on Thursday on SoundCloud and iTunes, and then the video is out Friday morning. Jump into the comments like this week or this weekend to just, reply to people on this episode. But they're like, I'll see something where like somebody's in Indonesia, and then there's
they'll say, I'm there
threads
too.
of
so
people
cool.
in
That's
the same
so
country
cool.
talking to each
That's
other in the
really
5%.
cool.
That's just like, oh man, this is so incredible.
Oh man.
So if there are multiple people listening in Iceland, let's form a group. We need Iceland 5%.
Iceland 5%, Belgium 5%. Just keep going.
I'm very excited to talk to all my fellow Canadians.
Well, guys, thanks for doing the podcast and staying late to do it.
Yeah, thank you for having us. This was so fun.
Yeah, this was great. I'll do it again.
Yeah, I'm always thankful that people hang out, because this is an idea we had. We used to do a podcast a long time ago that was a very misinformed news podcast called All We Know, where we just it was not good. It was entertaining, but you didn't get any good information.
That was the point of the podcast.
That was
Don't
the
listen
point
to
of it. But we always loved it. We're like, man, how do we bring this back? Like, all of us are so busy. What do we? And we're like, well, if we hang out after hours and then just see who's willing to like stay late after work, because we can't figure out a way to get this into the work schedule yet. Yeah. So thank you guys so much. They're giving up time after hours to hang out with us and hang out with you guys.
And big thanks for just making all this content and kind of taking this brand that we've built and continuing it and growing it into places we never could have possibly done without you guys. And shout out to the rest of your team members too. I'm sure hopefully they'll all cycle through the podcast at some point. But you know, we're super lucky to have you guys here at the company.
Oh, thank you.
That means a lot.
Yes, we would not be even able to do this podcast after hours if you guys weren't here and a part of this amazing content that we're turning out each week. And thanks to Oscar and Jay, who've been hanging out with us. Jay's running camera. Oscar's outside somewhere. I'm not quite sure where Oscar goes when we start this. He just kind of rappels into the ceiling and then he appears afterwards. But shout out to our PAs on the podcast. Again, thank you guys so much. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode. We'll be back with some new special guests, and maybe Rafi or maybe me. Who knows who will be here next week, but it's a grab bag. And we're looking forward to it. So thank you guys for hanging out. Hopefully you'll tune in next week, and we'll see you later.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.